What's going on, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to an episode of Opinionated. I, of course, am your guy, Resla, and I want to talk to you today about what are some things that you need to consider when you are thinking about starting over in your life. Now, for those of you who know, I have had a plan to start over for a lot of years, and then it really started clicking in for me at age 40. Age 40, going into 41, I pretty much made that transition timeline between 40 and 41. And then I am 42 now, so it's been a little over a year. And there are some things that you may need to consider if you're thinking about starting over yourself. I want to go over some things that I particularly noted because I formulated lots of different plans and I made lots of charts and assessments for me for places to follow. And there's some questions that you're probably not thinking about yourself as to whether you think this is the right move for you or right. And that's what I want to go through with some things. That's what I want to go through with you today to figure out these are some things that you might need to consider. So let's just get into it. First of all, you need to assess the reason for why you're wanting to quit your job. And it could be a lot of reasons. For me, it was a trifecta. There are lots of reasons why you can want to leave your job. You just want a better opportunity. Maybe you're not getting paid well enough. For me, I'll give you my three reasons. Because like I said, if it was one or the other, it would have been like, okay, I could suffer through it. But the three of them all combined was what did me in. And number one, it was the fact that there is a poor work culture. So if you're dealing with a poor work culture, this could be a really good reason as to why you might want to leave the area that you're currently in. The second part, one that was for me as well, is there was a lack of growth opportunities. With that being the case and that coming through, if you find yourself at a place where everybody's either vying for the same spot or that everybody's giving a different reason as to why you can't give that spot, even though you're qualified or even though you've gone through enough steps to do whatever, you might need to consider leaving, especially if you've been in your particular company for a certain amount of time. And the third one, which is also part of that trifecta, that triforce, if you will, was the fact that I was also experiencing burnout. I was doing way more work than what my role required. So these are some things that you might want to consider. Now, your needs might be a little bit different. Like I said, it might be compensation. It might be taking you time away from your kids. It could be a whole lot of things. But these were my three things that ultimately did me and it made me say, it's it's time that we parted ways. Determine if the issue that you're really having at your place of employment is temporary, or does the feeling that you have run deeper than that? Is it something that's a problem with the company itself, or is this a problem with your role? Because temporary frustrations may be resolved over time, but systemic ones, like what's going on with the problems of your whole or work culture, that may warrant you needing to leave your job. Consider when you last felt consistently all right with being at the role that you were in your job. How fulfilling was the work that you were doing? If it's been, say, years, it may be a sign that it's time for you to make a change. Next thing I would say is you have to prepare financially and emotionally. I would say give yourself some time off after quitting. Once you make the leap and you decide enough is enough, I'm out, you're gonna have to give yourself some time to process. And that's why preparing financial needs as well as your emotional needs is very important. You don't want to run from one tragedy and then it's like a breakup. You don't want to bring your baggage onto the next relationship, your the next employer, and you haven't really settled all the feelings that you had in your previous job. And in fact, if you're rushing very quickly, you may actually be stopping yourself from getting a really good job opportunity because you're still harboring resentment from the role that you had to leave. And you're bringing that into your potential job interview, which could be costing you the opportunity that you're looking for. So take some time off once you quit to get your emotional wellness back into check. And I would say avoid rushing into getting a new job. The next thing I would say is to have a plan. Have a plan. Make sure that you cover all your essential expenses during that transition time. Create plans or even some outlets to manage how your stress is going to be. Like for me, I have people to talk to. For me, I got back into vlogging. For me, I took more time to get off of forums that I used to be able to manage with. Now I just started really getting into actual being on panels and talking. But this is just how I did things. And you also need to plan for things that could be taking place that you didn't foresee. So make sure that you have some money in case things happen, well, out of the blue. I would say before you're even going to do this. I would say build a very strong support system, or know what kind of support system you have of the network of the people that you know, or the people that are friends with you, whatever. Like, you need to have a real, genuine support when you're making your decision, whether you are by yourself, have really strong family members that you live with, or strong roommates or whatever. I really can't say what is your particular situation. If you have a spouse that you with, great. Like, if you two are on board with the fact that you're going to be leaving your place of business because it's just making you so miserable, you need to be able to do these things. You need to be able to also have a strong support system to avoid fear. When you're going through this process, right, you know you're making a sacrifice. And it's not just you getting your mental well-being, but you're also making a sacrifice at the same time. And as you notice that you're paying your bills, or you're noticing that you can't really plan to do things the way that you want to, or things like that, you're gonna only notice that you see money leaving and you don't really see things coming in. And that could create a trigger of fear for you. And you need to have that strong support system to say, not, well, you knew this when you made this choice, because that's not a real support system, even though it is rather true. But to those who knows that, hey, who remind you, remember that you're doing this for your own well-being, and remember that you're doing this because it was that or something really horrible, unforeseen could have taken place. So just keep that in mind, that you, even though this is going to be a hard journey that you've taken up, that it is an important step. It is an important step for you to really do the things that you would feel more beneficial to you, because you, at the end of the day, want to do something that you at least consider to be valuable, not just monetarily, but something that you can say that gives you some sort of purpose. The next thing I would say is, honestly, you need to look for new opportunities. If the kind of work experience that the kind of career or the kind of work experience you were already dealing with is something that you don't want to do anymore, then you need to make an action plan real quick and make an assessment plan as to what is it that you're actually looking to do. And here's the truth of the matter: you may not know what you want to do yet. Here's a good opportunity to look at your resources, look at your time frame, and think of all the different things that you know would be something that you might want to try out doing. You don't want to sit around just looking at what you've done and then saying, this is all I want to do. Because then the question is, why did you leave your last job, for one? And it could be multiple reasons. Like I said, could be poor work culture, which is a strong one for me. But also the question becomes, do you want to take the risk of getting into a new employer who could still have the same kind of problems that you had with your previous employer? Maybe they pay less money. Who knows? Because the truth of the matter is that when you're going on an interview, and even if the job sounds really good, because you also don't want to go into a situation with a job that you're going there out of desperation, because you're willing to take anything not knowing what you're getting into. Because companies don't tell you the department that you're going to. Companies won't tell you just how the function of that department that you could be walking into is. They don't tell you all the ish that is really going on. You may ask the question, they say, well, we got some things here, we got some things there, but they really don't tell you how bad it is. You only find out by seeing it yourself over time. You don't want to walk into a situation that's going to make you feel stressed, or that will make you feel just as stressed as you were on the job that made you leave in the first place. So you need to keep that in mind. I would say develop a plan. So create basically a step-by-step plan and an action plan, because I think that's the best thing. For me, here were the things that I created. First of all, I created a self-assessment for myself. I looked at all my strengths, all my strengths, all my weaknesses. I put them into a chart. What are things I'm good at? What are things I wasn't so good at? What are some things that I need to work on versus the things that I'm already really good at? How do I translate those things and hold on to those skills to make sure that I'm not really falling off with them, but at the same time working on some of the lower skills? Then what I made, being the kind of profession I was in, I also made a risk assessment chart. So, I had to think about, where was I at currently? How am I looking financially? How is the job market looking? How often is my rate of looking for work? If I had to go look for work, because even though I had time off, I should still look for work. What was the frequency that I should be looking at for work? What was the time frames that I was going to be looking at in terms of it? So let's just say a month goes by. maybe I'm, in that first month or so, maybe I'm not looking for work. Maybe the second month I'm not looking for work. Maybe the third month I'm not even looking for work. Just getting your mind right. But maybe in that fourth month, you may want to apply to a few jobs. You don't want to make a job search be your full-time job now, because maybe you're not in the rush to that. But hey, maybe if you're looking for a job, right? Maybe you don't want to, depending on what your situation is. Like I said, you might have a spouse. Maybe you've allocated some resources so that you don't need to quickly spend so much, but you don't want to just totally start tapering everything off. So maybe you might want to get a part-time job doing something that has a little less time pressure. That's something you may need to consider as well. Or you can do pretty much what I did. Like, you can become freelance. You could go look at freelance sites. Maybe you have other skills that you've been working on. Maybe with your time off, you can invest in doing part-time skills of things that you learn to freelance in those areas. Now, because you're not a pro at it, you could be doing it at a little lower rate. But at the same time, while you're getting a lower rate, you're also building experience in clientele. So who knows what it could be? It could be web design. It could be coding, social media marketing. It could be a number of things. Whatever you're really taking the time to go look into, and you can build these skills in a lot of different ways. Or you're doing Fiverr, or you're doing a master class which teaches you some skills, so that therefore you're able to translate that into these other platforms that I mentioned. Maybe you're looking at something on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different avenues that you can go, as long as you set an action plan to be very intentional. For me, I set a self-assessment. I set a risk assessment for that. And then after that is when I built up my step-by-step action plan. Aim for the small wins. Take your moments. Take your moment, and you have to keep yourself motivated. I cannot stress to you how important it is, because you're in a transitional period, and it's not going to seem like it's all sunshine and rainbows. Like, it took me months before I simply woke up one day and I just really felt like, oh shit, like I don't have to go to work. Because even when I was sleeping for those couple of months, I was still quote unquote dreaming of work. I still had a work schedule. I was getting up early, doing things, getting coffee, and I'm like, I have extra time to myself. Like, why am I still only sleeping 4 hours? Why am I only still sleeping 4 hours? But, if I'm lucky, 5 hours. Like, I have more free time. But then at the same time, you're like, I don't want to jump back into bed. I want to be productive, right? Do small things, learn things over that time. I mean, at least if you're going to be up and you still have that work time clock in your system, then use it to learn some skills. And take the small wins. I'm not going to be great at it, but it's a skill that I did not have prior, that you can add to your repertoire. You can add that to your resume. You can add that to a portfolio, and know that even though it's a small transition that you may not be great at because it's not really in your wheelhouse, that it's still something that you're learning. You got to take the small steps and know that it's going to be something bigger in the end. You also have to have an open mind to unexpected opportunities that may come up. Some might align with your goals, some will not. And sometimes you have to make the decision of whether you want to jump into something that doesn't necessarily align with your goals, but it could be something to help gain you experience anyway. Consider that as well. You may jump into a job of production, and maybe it's not necessarily something you want, but you never know what you can learn from it, or you never know who at that particular site, job, event, whatever, knows who. And besides, if you're wanting to gain experience, especially at things that you're not necessarily good at, like for me, it's a little different. Like, I have previous production experience, but at the same time, you never know who you're going to meet there, building rapport, shaking hands, talking about stuff, assisting. I was working at a gig where basically my job was totally something different. But then I also noticed some professional photographers that were there. And when they had a free time before the event was live, whatever, I talked to them and asked them, hey, what did you do to really get into the gig? How do you do like that? Who did you work with? Was there anything, as someone who's getting into the thing, is there anything I should know about? Hey, what about this? What about camera work? Whatever. I'm sorry that I'm really picking your mind like this. Is that I'm in a transitional point right now. So I'm hoping that you'll be a little lenient with me as I'm asking you, as a professional who's ahead of me, what can I do to best be able to get into this gig? There's a lot of questions, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you if you just simply ask. Just simply ask. You'd be surprised. Not everybody's sitting there, holding their cards to the vest or whatever, because the truth of the matter is, it works out both ways. Let's just say they're getting you into the game, right? And you managed to get lucky somewhere. They're also using you as a network card, because now it can help them branch out and get clients that they never had before. You never know. So just keep that in mind. Opportunities are anywhere, but opportunities are only available to those who are looking to stumble into areas they need to be. There's always a shortcut, yes, and shortcuts can be dangerous, but it's always the way, and that's typically the long way. And then there's also detours. That's why there are detours. Sometimes you get lucky and you find somebody while doing something else you never thought that you would be doing. Keep an open mind. If you're a person who basically is thinking about leaving your job, right, and you're starting anew, keep in mind that you should prioritize what's best for you and not be concerned with the opinions of other people. It's also important to recognize that there's going to be this daunting aspect that's going to be like having this safety net, which is why I say it's very important of having financial resources set for yourself, because you're also taking a risk at potentially not achieving your goals. And ultimately, your employment does not determine your identity, and yet you have to take all this responsibility and shape it for yourself because you don't have really a backup plan. And you're gonna have people that with their opinions and say you're gonna leave, but what are you gonna do? Or are you gonna go? For someone like me, when people run into me, they're like, "Oh, so what are you doing now?" Thinking that you just immediately jump ship from the last place you were at and just jumped into somewhere else. And now you also have to keep in mind that, say you haven't landed anything yet, right? What do you do? Do you really want to be open and tell those people that you haven't found anything yet? How are they going to look at me? At the same time, should you really be caring about the opinions of what somebody else thinks because you wanted to take the time off? Because again, everybody's situation is different. What if you are a stay-at-home wife or a stay-at-home husband in this case? What if you're doing that? Or what if you're deciding to say, hey, I'm just doing my own thing, because maybe you don't want to be so vocal about what you're doing because you don't want really many eyes on you, because perhaps you're left now from the company and now you're not even thinking about really jumping into a new employer. Maybe you want to open your own business. You could be considering that. Being a contractor or freelancer is a very different mindset because everything is on you. So what you pay, how you do your taxes is different. You have to take care of your own insurance. Like, these are all new things that you may not necessarily be used to because you've always had an employer doing these things for you. By the way, you're getting paid. How often are you going to be getting gigs or contracts? Say it this way. Oh shoot! Now you have to invest in putting money into your retirement on your own. How do you want to segment that money, and along with paying your bills? Like this, there's so many things that you need now to consider that you necessarily didn't have to consider prior. And it could be scary. It could be scary because now you have to think differently. Don't let it overwhelm you. Just like how you got used to paying your taxes and how you manage your PTO and how you manage your expenses on an actual employer, you're gonna be able to figure that out on your own, should you choose to. Here's my other thing. Taking a chance is the only way you're really gonna be able to achieve what you're looking for, unless you're looking to achieve something that's under an employer. And I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I was doing it for multiple years. I thought that might have been the thing. And then I realized I've been doing something for so long because it fit within my skills naturally. It was never a desire of mine to work in compliance. It was never a goal of mine. It just worked out that way because I had natural skills forming over time with work habits that built me to a particular area of my life. That's just the way it is for some people. So you really have to sit down and think about, what are your talents, what are your skills, and how do you nurture those things together? Because your skills are the things that you've been pounding at in order to learn. Your talents are things that you're somehow innately are good at. And now you have to identify those two things and make them work cohesively. But it's going to be a challenge at the start, because here's something else. It's going to be a challenge for you, especially if you're a person that you don't know yourself yet. Now, there's many debates on this. Oh, at a certain age, a person should really know themselves. If you spend more time getting to know other people, if you spend more time being under people and people telling you how you should behave, you don't really take the time to know yourself. And this happens to a myriad of people from their 20s to their 50s and even their 60s. They've been running around with everybody else telling them what they should do, what they should wear, where they should go, when time they should show up, when they can take time off. They haven't really discovered who they are. Everything, their entire being has been over something else. They have not developed the mindset in being a creative. Some of us, we have an entrepreneur spirit. it's so weird to even say that I would be an entrepreneur because it's not really my thing. I always thought that I would be somebody who's working up under a company. So being on my own is really strange again. But as an older person, as a person who's also been on the business and worked on financial ends and stuff like that, it's a different transition from how I was in my 20s to now doing it starting over in my 40s. It's a different dynamic altogether. When you're taking this leap to pursue your goals, it's crucial to, or rather, it's crucial for you building on what's personally fulfilling, because that means you need to now figure out who exactly are you? What exactly are you good at versus what you were trained on, and making those things work together. It's important because it's a practical backup system for yourself. Once you get that system in place for yourself, once you have a good idea of who you are, you can then set a proper action plan, which is going to be essential because now you get to prioritize what's important to you, what's important for growth, what to prioritize. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling when you have a path that you didn't have to negotiate with someone else, with your manager, with your HR, whatever. It's a path that you set, done by you, for you, by you. Yes, there's a FUBU reference in there. You need to keep in mind that you are not defined by your profession. You're not a cashier at Chick-fil-A. That's not who you are. You're not telecommunications at whatever telecom place. Those are titles of things that you have come to achieve, but they're not you. You are so much more than that, and you can always change to become something more. Because too many times we're given labels and we assign those labels to ourselves as beings. I know the feeling, and that's pretty much it. I wish I can tell you more about that. Maybe I will make an episode one day to go through the process of creating an assessment, to trying to figure out what the risks are going to be. But again, it's going to be very specific to your needs, not necessarily mine. And I guess by creating an action plan for yourself, I will tell you that it's nice to see it all written out and then moving forward from there. If you managed to enjoy any of the information that I gave you in this particular episode, do me a favor, guys. You already know what it is. Just hit that like button for this actual video. Subscribe if that's something you're into, and be sure to check out my other videos. I got lives, I got shorts. If you're going to be taking that plunge, I wish you the best. And just know that if no one else is really thinking about supporting you, I support you. I can't do much for you because I'm in it myself, and I'm just looking to be the example of letting you know that people have done it before us, and we can be there to support those who will do it after us. Stay opinionated. See you next time.